Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 446. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea, where you can find my knitting patterns and hand-spun yarns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, October 23rd, and I hope that you are doing well. Last week was kind of a loss for me. As I mentioned when I chatted with you on Monday, we were having a bit of a plumbing emergency, and that actually wasn't fixed until late Friday afternoon. So, and then on Saturday, my husband ran the Kansas City Half Marathon, and I did the 10K. So honestly, we didn't really get back into our house until Saturday evening. And then yesterday, I just kind of napped and took a day to decompress. So this episode will be pretty short because I don't have a lot to show you. I had a few knitting mishaps, which I will talk about. I have done no spinning because I have not been in the same room as my spinning wheel until last night and this morning. And we are getting ready to travel again. So this week looks like it will be interesting in terms of productivity. So this is, I guess next week, Monday, I will still be able to use my mug, but this is almost the end of the Hello Kitty mug because, of course, we are ever nearing Halloween. Today, I went looking for a pumpkin, maybe a pumpkin oolong, and I didn't find anything. So today I am drinking Harney & Sons mulled plum cider, and I bought this a long time ago. I don't know if they still have it in stock. I meant to go look beforehand. If it is, it will be linked in the show notes, which are at thecornerofknitandtea.com. Otherwise, I really like Harney & Sons teas, and you can get them in small packages or larger packages, depending on if you just want to try a little bit. This one smells absolutely amazing. It's all the mulling spices. And so I have a nice warm cup of tea to get me through the afternoon. Oh, that's really good. I might have to see if there's more of that, if I can order more of that. So, like I said, last week was a bit of a cluster, you know what. We were at a hotel pretty much every night last week, and we were back at the house during the day to sit with the repairmen, and it was just not that much fun, and I just did not get that much done because I was exhausted in the evenings. So let's talk about what I'm working on. Sadly, I have had some backwards progress on my colorwork sweater that I have been showing you for a while. So I have been working on Antique Flora by Wool and Pine, and I am knitting it in Zen Yarn Garden yarns, and I am using a teal as the main color. This is the contrast color. I'm using a teal as the main color, and then this is my contrast color, which is a teal speckle, and it's got aqua and teal and a little bit of a more royal blue. You can see it's just got lots and lots of different blues in it. So I was, technically, I was finished with the color work. I made it through the last of the 30 rows yesterday and was super excited to just roar through the body in the stockinette. And as I went to switch it from one needle to another, as I was kind of knitting it around and both needles were in it at the same time. So I guess I should say I have been working on, I did the color work. Originally, I did the color work on a size, let's see, 4, which is not what the pattern calls for. The pattern calls for needles that are quite a bit bigger, but I cannot get gauge with those. So I have been using a size 4 on the pattern. And as I was switching from the 4, which is what I was using the color work for, to the size 3 to do the stockinette, I had both needles in the sweater at once. So you know how when I was knitting on a US 4 and a 32 inch. So the sweater fit on it nicely, but it was a little bit bunched up around the needle. And so I wasn't really paying that close attention. And so when I went to switch it to the 32 inch US 3, it was on the needles, and I looked at it and I was like, that looks kind of wide. Like I'm at the point where it's below the bust, but I haven't done any shaping yet. And so I was looking at it and I was like, that looks really wide compared to the yoke part at the above where I split for the sleeves, where it's supposed to cover the shoulders. And I thought, nope, I'm just going to move on and forget it. So I put it on the needle and I knit like 2 rounds in the stockinette, and then I was like, no, you know, you try to ignore these problems and they do not go away. So I got out my try-it-on tubing. It's not really called try-it-on tubing. It's called the Knitting Barber. They are the acrylic cables or silicone cables. Mine happen to be pink, and they are really useful. They come in 2 shorter ones that can be used for sleeves, and then 1 longer one that can be used for the body. And so I pulled this through. You kind of hook it to the needle and pull it through, and I pulled it through half of it, and I laid the sweater flat and measured it, and I am knitting the size 37-inch bust, and at that point I was looking at approximately a 42-inch bust. And I muttered some not so ladylike words. And then I went and looked and measured, and it turned out that basically from the time I had split for the sleeves, I think because I was worried about the fact that the top, you remember, so I guess I've talked about how, like, I'm not super comfortable knitting colorwork in big yokes. I'm fine if it's like a small circumference or a mitten or something like that, but I really have trouble maintaining even tension on the yokes. And I had talked to you about how this was not my favorite knit, blah, 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 and that I thought I was doing okay, but there were a few sections where it was looking puckery. I guess what I did is I just loosened up a lot. I will say that I did not knit most of this last week, so most of it had actually been knit. If you remember when I showed you last week, I was almost done. I only had like 10, 12 rows left. So most of the work had actually been done before things went up in smoke last week. So like, and I would have expected that my tension would have tightened because I was anxious last week. So basically my gauge changed drastically, and you know, a stitch per inch when you're working on, or a stitch per inch when you're working on a big sweater can result in multiple inches by the time you actually resolve it. So I ripped last night. I ripped almost back to the underarms. I was maybe like 2 or 3 rows past the underarms, and I have started re-knitting. So the sweater is going to look very similar to where it was last week when you saw it. I have 17 rows left, and my goal is to try and get through them in the next couple nights. But I am back to where I am only a little bit below the armhole now, and still working on my color work and trying to hold my color work a little tighter but not puckery. This is definitely a Goldilocks knit for me, like not too tight, not too loose, somewhere in the middle. Hope we don't have puckers, hope I can block it out, but I needed to go back and rip that for that to be a decent size. Now I will say the top is meant to be worn with 0 to 6 inches of positive ease. So either, you know, straight in your size or a little bit of extra ease. And honestly, if I had been knitting this sweater for myself, I might have left it, because I am knitting the size 37. I have a 38-inch bust, and a 42 was not looking terrible on me. However, it is not the appropriate sample size, and the size that I am knitting should have a 37-inch bust. And as I said, up top, I am getting gauge, which is approximately 6 stitches per inch, and then down on the bottom I was really down to like 5 1/4 or 5, which totally explains why I had several extra inches, because like I said, an extra stitch for every inch when you've got 37 is, you know, lots of extra stitches. So it's not surprising that I had several extra inches at the bust, but it is annoying. So like I said, I ripped back and I am still working on this, and I think it looks pretty good. And what I went ahead and did just to be safe is I dropped the needle size down, since apparently I am knitting a little bit looser. So up at the top I used a US 4 to do my color work, and down here I'm using US 3, which means I might drop the body to a 2. We'll have to see. Like I said, I am just having a lot of trouble getting gauge. So the pattern wants you to get 6 stitches to the inch on DK weight with a US 6 or 8 needle. And that seems really difficult to me, because honestly on a 6 or an 8 I'm usually getting 4 to 5 stitches an inch, and not yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at on this one. Not infallible. Sometimes you just have to rip to make it work the way you want it to work. And so my hopes for this sweater are that I don't have anything else that I'm working on this week. I don't have a chicken this week. I don't have another sample on the needles yet. I'll show you the other thing that I'm working on, but it's not super pressing. So my goal for this week, the first couple days of this week, is to finish the color work, to really just buckle down and do like 10 rows tonight and 7 rows tomorrow night and get it done so that when we leave on our trip on Thursday, which I'll talk about in just a minute, I can really work through the stockinette on the body. Basically, the way the pattern is written, I will finish, the chart does go part way down the body, but then I will have somewhere between 7 and 10 inches of body to knit, and then some ribbing on the bottom. So my hope is that I can finish the body of the sweater and maybe even go back and start working on the sleeves while I'm on vacation. But hopefully, if nothing else, just let that stockinette fly, because I have several long days that I am driving. So that is my plan for the sweater. Hopefully by the time I get back next week, I will be into the sleeves. I should be back in time on Monday to podcast, but on the off chance that I am not, the podcast might be delayed till Tuesday. We are arriving home sometime on Monday, and I think it's going to be early afternoon, in which case I'll show you what I worked on while I was gone, and if not, I will update on Tuesday. So that, again, is the Antique Flora Sweater by Wool and Pine, and I'm knitting it for Zen Yarn Garden. It is a sample, hence my need to rip, and I do think I'm already doing better because I just don't have as much fabric on the needles as I had before. So yeah, so that was not forward progress, sadly, or at least there was some forward and then a lot of backward, but hopefully I'm going to make it up within a couple days, and I'm kind of on track to, this one will not be done by the end of October, but hopefully by the first little bit of November. So, I needed a project to work on last week while I was in a hotel room, and I had been looking at some patterned socks for my mom. I had showed you that skein called Blackberry Jam. I had showed you that skein last week, I guess, and talked about how that was probably going to be my next cast on. And then when everything went crazy, I just needed something that was simple and mindless and a little bit of a respite from everything else that I was doing. So I thought about what else I needed to do, and one of the things that I needed to do was knit some hats for the kids. And you know, I definitely find hats like an instant gratification knit and a very easy palette cleanser. Plus, if I'm doing a plain hat, it's really not a hard thing to do. So I had bought, when I was last in Chicago seeing my niece and nephew, we had gone to the yarn store, and my niece had picked out 2 skeins of gradient yarn that she had wanted turned, well, we went looking for sock yarn and we didn't find appropriate sock yarn. So then she found these really cool gradient skeins, and I said, I think I can make a hat out of those. And so this is actually not the one for Roxy. This is the one for her brother. But I wanted to show it to you because it's like all put together. You'll see the other one. It's kind of falling apart because I've been using it. So this is Juniper Moon Farms Cumulus Rainbow, which is a blend of Israeli Mako cotton with a touch of nylon for strength. It is basically a chainette construction. So it is really, really super soft and airy, really lightweight. It's 94% cotton, 6% nylon, 100 grams, 251 yards. So this is a really nice sized cake. I think this would actually be lovely for summer tops or something, like something fun for the summer and lightweight. And I didn't really, she picked it up, she was like, oh, this is so soft and I love the colors. And I didn't really do kind of a brain check on like, wait, is that going to be really great for a hat? So the first issue is that it is cotton, and not that cotton can't be cozy for hat, but it's not the warmest, and it tends to, it doesn't hold heat the way wool does, like trap warm air the way wool does, and it also tends to stretch out a little bit. So the first thing that I thought about was like, what am I going to do with this cotton that's going to be a good use of the cotton? And also there's 250 yards per skein. So what am I going to do that's actually going to use the gradient? Because it's not much fun if I only use like the very first part of the gradient, and most kids' hats take 100 to 150 yards. So I was kind of trying to figure this out, and then I kind of had a brilliant idea, which was the Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague. I have knit the Musselburgh hat before for my, well, I think I knit it as a gift for someone else. I know I've knit one before. Basically, it is kind of a cylinder that you knit, and you start at the very top center of the hat. So you start right at the center where you would, normally where you would bind off, but you start at the top and you build outward. And when you get to the appropriate width or circumference for your head, then you continue knitting in a really long tube. And then at the other end, you decrease in the same fashion to get back to the point of the hat. And then you block it in this kind of weird oval cylinder thing that looks way too long to be anything. And then when you're done, you shove one half inside the other half, and it becomes a double thick hat that you can pull the brim up, you can wear it as a beanie, you can wear it slouchy, you can reverse it, and it's just a really cool hat. And it is one pattern written for a variety of weights and sizes. Basically, the way she does the pattern, and I'm not giving away too much here, is she has you start at the top with a certain number of stitches, and then you knit until you've, and you follow the increase pattern until you've got about an inch knit, enough that you can kind of measure your gauge, and then you measure your gauge, and based on the number of stitches that you are getting per inch, then you follow the pattern through to how many stitches you ultimately should have based on the size, and then how long you want your tube to be and where you should start your decreases. And so it is a really ingenious pattern. It is written for baby all the way up through large adult, and so there is kind of a small adult, older child, which is the it's like baby, toddler, child, adult, small, medium, large, and you can certainly adapt from there, because each round when you're doing increases only adds a certain number of stitches on there, so you can make it as big as you want it to be, you can make it as long as you want it to be, etc. So I went and looked, and for the child size, it calls for 231 yards, or right around 230 yards, and this is 251 yards. So basically, I can get most of the gradient in using this, and of course, you won't be able to see the whole gradient in the hat when it's worn, but they'll be able to flip it in and out. So that was a really long-winded way of saying that what I did is I started a hat, and I'm fairly far in, but you can see that this is the one that I am doing for Miss Roxy. She picked this one out for herself, and I believe this is the mermaid colorway, and I'm now going into the teal section. So I will continue for a little while longer, probably a while longer. It ends up looking like an oversized hat, but when you go to wear it, like I said, it either wears as a slouchy hat, or you can cuff up the brim, which means the brim is quadruple thick, and so I'm really excited about this. I might not get into all of the teal at the end, but I should get into enough of it, and the gradient is really gentle and kind of fun, and so like you'll be able to see the purple to green, and then probably almost the green to teal, so she'll be able to wear it either way. The things that I liked about this were, one, I could use the whole gradient up in one small project that will be fun for them to wear. They can wear it different ways on different days. I thought that a double thick cotton hat would probably be better than a single thick cotton hat, and also I thought that might help with some of the stretch issues, because it's just going to create a denser fabric, so it might not stretch out as much. And so my hope is that this will be okay. The one thing I did not look at on the label is it probably says hand wash, but I'm probably going to tell my sister that she can do whatever she wants. Yeah, it says hand wash, no dry, no iron. I'll probably stick these in the washing machine in the dryer just to see what happens. It is cotton, so it probably will shrink a little bit, but I'm knitting them on the big side, so I'm not too concerned about that. The other thing I can do is I can tell my sister to put them in the wash on gentle, and then just air dry them. So I'm not super concerned about these, but I do think it's going to be super fun. And as you can see, you cast on at the top. I have just a little bit of a hole here, and I will take this tail and pull it through there, and it has you basically hide that tail inside, and then it will have me hide the tail at the other end on the inside, and so it will basically just be a seamless 2-layer hat, and then I can just block it, and it'll be ready to go. So it is super, super soft. It is like next to skin soft. I absolutely like baby soft, and what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, it is cotton, so it doesn't have a lot of give, but it has a little bit of give, and it is not bad to knit with at all. It doesn't make my hands hurt, so, and as you know, like knitting with dishcloth cotton and some of the other more mercerized cottons or a little bit sturdier cottons can be kind of hard on your hands to work with, because they just don't have the give of a lot of the the animal natural fibers. So, but that is what I am working on. So my plan is to finish this one on my trip because I'm sure I'll have lots of time for that. And then my plan is to start this one for Miles. And I'm going to start it with the reddish pink section because he is a current fan of red and pink. And so I will just sacrifice a little bit of the orange if I don't quite get there. But that will give him a bunch of different colors to play with. So although his least favorite color right now is like yellow and green. So I don't know, maybe I will try and move from the blue. Maybe I'll try and abbreviate the green a little bit and then go all the way through the orange. We'll have to see. So that is what I'm working on there. And then I probably will take the socks for my mom with me in case I finish any of this. It's not that I'm planning to do like a ton of knitting while we're gone, but I will have lots of car time. So let me talk briefly about where I'm going and what I'm doing. My niece is getting married, and obviously not Roxy and Miles. Roxy and Miles are 10 and 7. I have a niece on my husband's side who is 24, 25, 26, something like that. I would have to look to be exactly sure. Let me think about this. She was 13, 12, 20. She's 24. And she has been with her beau for quite a while now, and they announced in the spring that they were getting married, and they had talked about it being a fall wedding, and we hadn't heard anything, and we hadn't heard anything, and we hadn't heard anything, and then about 2 weeks ago, we got an invitation for this coming weekend. So we are going to the East Coast. We're going to Virginia Beach, and we'll be there for a couple days, and her wedding is on Saturday, and my mother-in-law is going, and one of her sisters is going, so it's going to be a family time, a joyous family occasion. I am very, very excited for my niece and her to-be husband getting to start their lives together, but we are going to drive out to Virginia Beach, which is about an 18-hour drive. We're going to break it up over a couple days, and then break it coming back over a couple days, but there will be lots and lots of car time, and my husband actually doesn't enjoy being a passenger, so he does most of the driving. He would prefer it that way, and that leaves me with a lot of time to knit. So I am obviously packing lots of knitting, and since we're driving, we have room in the car, so I am just packing lots and lots of knitting, and I'll get done what I get done, and I'll share with you when I get back. So next week I will hopefully have lots of good knitting progress to share with you. I just won't have any spinning because, again, I'm probably not going to touch my spinning wheel this week. And, you know, that's just the way it is. Life gets in the way sometimes. And I'm not going to take, I do have a portable e-spinner, but I'm not going to take that with me. I am just going to concentrate on knitting because, I can hardly believe it. Today is October 23rd, but so next Monday is October 30th, which means next week we are into November, which is startling. I feel like I lost this past week and then I'm losing a chunk of this week, and I can hardly believe it's November, but that also means it's Nanny Swaymo. And of course, if I don't finish, I have to finish my jobs before I can start knitting a sweater for myself. And so if I don't finish this colorwork sweater soon, I am not going to have time to start a sweater for myself during November. I am planning to do a sweater for myself this November, although I'm actually planning to do more of a vest than a sweater. It technically won't count in terms of Nanny Swaymo, because if you remember, Nanny Swaymo, National Knit a Sweater Month, takes place in November, and it is meant sort of to go alongside NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, and it suggests that to participate, you should knit a sweater of 50,000 stitches. And I am not going to knit a sweater of 50,000 stitches, again, because I'm going to knit a vest, which has no sleeves. The way I arrived at this conclusion actually was not time motivated, although it's good because I think it will help. I arrived at this conclusion because it was yarn length motivated. So I bought a sweater quantity of yarn, or what I decided was a sweater quantity of yarn when I was in New Zealand, and I bought a full bag. It was 10 balls of a really beautiful merino possum yarn, and when I say possum, I do not mean opossum like here in the United States. I mean possum like in New Zealand, and possum is in the same category as mink and some of the other really luxurious short stapled fibers, and so it is incredibly warm, it is incredibly soft, think kind of like cashmere and some of the other luxury fibers, and it is often blended with merino to make just really beautiful yarns. And I bought a package 10 balls. And what I realized when I got home was that I have about 1,000 yards of yarn, which in a DK weight, or a jumper weight, which is what they call it, like an 8-ply. And what I realized was that it wasn't really enough to do a full sweater out of, because I really need 12 to 1,400 yards for my size. And so because it is New Zealand yarn, and because I could probably order more, but I don't know if the dye lots would match, and I decided to look for something that could be a pseudo sweater in terms of a really warm garment, because I do think the wool is going to be really, really warm, and tried to decide like exactly what that would be. And one of the things that I thought was that I could make a vest. And so to me, it's also interesting how many different versions of vest there are on Ravelry. I mean, sometimes when I think of a vest, I think of a very like a man's vest, a staid like shirtwaist vest, where it's just like over and you've got your V-neck and whatever. But I found a variety of vests, long vests, short vests, you know, all kinds of things. And I picked out a pattern. So I didn't bring that yarn to show you today, or the pattern, because I decided next week will be the 30th, so I will show you then. But that is my plan to cast on for that. And then, like I said, I have the hat and the pair of socks for my mom, and that is kind of what I've got going on for the next little bit. I do have one more sample shawl waiting in the wings for whenever I finish this sweater sample, but the sweater sample is going to take precedence first because I want to get that done. And so I think that's kind of going to be my knitting for the next little bit. I have not really started on the baby blanket that I talked about. In fact, the most I did was I calculated how many stitches I wanted it to be, and I did the I-cord cast on, and then I have done nothing since then. So that is another project that you will probably see in November and December. And so I am hoping that life is going to run a little more smoothly for the next few weeks so that I can really get some knitting and project work done. So I think I'm going to stop there. Apparently not having anything to show you didn't mean I couldn't talk for a while today. Sorry that this one was a little bit more chatty than usual. I hope that you are doing well. I hope that you do not have any housing and plumbing and other kinds of unexpected emergencies on your plate. It was not super fun, and we're going to be paying it off for a little while, but I am thankful that we both have good jobs, and that we do not have to choose between having plumbing and eating, because I do know that in some cases that would be an issue. So I am going to say be well, happy spinning, happy knitting, happy sipping, and I will see you next time. Bye.